Hello there, and welcome to another episode of Cutting Through the Bullshit. I am your host, Dr. Stephanie Snyder, and I am a high performance mentor. Through my unique blend of strategy, mindset, and intuition, I help men and women to cut through the BS in order to create the life and business they desire. We just had a little technical. This is where we're at today. You're getting me in full force. So, a couple of weeks ago, I saw this thing on Instagram. It was an ad for, like, what is the best time in which you should wake up and go to sleep, right? Like, and, your best hours for productivity. And I thought, all right, let me just give this thing a whirl. I did the free, 7-day trial, immediately canceled it after day one, because I was like, I don't care to know all of this information about my sleep. I don't want to stratify my sleep. I know when I wake up in the morning whether it's going to be how I feel. So I don't need a watch to tell me how I did or didn't do, right? Or an Oura ring. I don't need that. And so I did this little quiz thing, and it said that I should go to bed between 7:50 and 8:50 at night, which makes sense. And then I should wake up between, 4:38 and 5:38. And ironically, I actually wake up during that time anyways, just naturally. So it wasn't really eye-opening to me, because it took the information from my phone based off of when I pick up my phone, put my phone down for the night, kind of a thing. So it wasn't really tracking my health per se. But I did find that it was interesting. And so what I did was I experimented with it. I thought, okay, when I wake up, let me just wake up for the day, instead of laying there going, I don't really need to be up until 6 o'clock. And so for the past couple of weeks, when I wake up at 4:30-ish, I get up and get out of bed. And it is insane how productive I am in the first 2 hours of the day. So what I used to do is, when I would wake up, I would make sure that I wasn't on my phone. I would do my Bible study, and then I'd put my phone down, and I would journal, and I would try not to dive into doing a bunch of things and being reactive for the day. But what I found is I actually have I'm way more productive when I respond to people first thing in the morning. And then I have the whole day to myself. So right now it's not even 10 a.m. and I'm about done with the things that have to be done for today. This is really the last thing on my list, because I've already made all the phone calls. People opened at 9 o'clock, so I made all the phone calls I needed to make. I sent out emails at 5 a.m. this morning, and it's really quite fun. Went for a run this morning, very, very productive before 7 o'clock this morning. And it feels good. It doesn't feel like it was draining my energy. It didn't feel like I was reacting to people, which is kind of why I stayed away from it for a little while. I didn't want to start my day reacting to everybody else. But instead, I found that when I respond, so essentially do my to-do list in the first few hours of the day, it's quite freeing, really. Because it's all out of the way by noon most days. And then I get to do whatever it is that I want for the rest of the day. And the rest of the day, it's okay, I got an email, cool, let me check that out. But it's very, very low key, kind of just, it's a better flow, really. And it took me years to get here. So if you're not a morning person, that's totally okay. But chances are you have time during your day in which you're able to be way more productive than other parts of the day. Some people are night owls. I'm not. If I'm up past 11 o'clock, or rather 10 o'clock, my children are shocked. So Saturday night we had friends over, and I texted my son, good night at the end of the night. It was 10:30. And the text I got from him immediately, because he's a night owl, the text I got from him immediately was, oh my God, Mom, you're awake? Are you okay? What's wrong? Why are you texting me at 10:30 at night? And I said, no, I was up being social. I'm okay, right? And so it's really about tuning in to find out what works best for you. There are going to be things that you can use and borrow from somebody else. I am a theme kind of a person where my days are themed. And because they're themed, I know on certain days I'm doing certain things. Tuesdays, I'm recording podcasts, so I wash my hair and I use the good shampoo, right? And my husband laughs at me when I say it. But that's because I'm going to be on video that day. Now, there are other days that I can hop on video and I'll be fine, but Tuesday is usually my recording day, and that's when I get things done. And it works because then I don't have to think about it the rest of the time, right? So I actually had this conversation with my husband the other day. And I said, honey, I've asked you probably 5 or 6 questions in the last hour, and you have answered none of them. And he looked at me and he said, what questions have you asked me that I haven't answered? And so I told him all of the questions. And I said, what happens when you don't answer these questions is like it opens a tab on the computer in my mind. And until I get an answer for that thing, the tab stays open on my computer. And so when you don't answer questions, my mental space is chewed up by all of these mundane questions that you haven't answered yet. And it's not like they're hard questions. Some of those questions are, what do you want for dinner? What are we having for lunch? What is your plan for the day? What are you, like, very, very easy questions, right? I wasn't having a conversation with him about his childhood, or his life story or his vision 5 years from now, right? Just very simple questions that, would help me to kind of navigate my own day based off of what his day was. And so he laughed at me and he said, what do you mean you have all these open tabs? And I said, of all of the logistics that I handle as the mom of the house, all of these things are open tabs. I said, and at the end of the day, between running our multiple businesses, we have 3 now, about to be, 3 now, running multiple businesses, coordinating the children, I said, by the end of the day, I am decision fatigued. And so when I defer to you at the end of the day, when the children are asking questions, it's not because I can't answer. It's because I've answered all of the other questions the rest of the day that I'm done. Just done, peace out, game over. And I actually sent him an Instagram reel of somebody who had said something similar to this. And I said, see, this is the thing. And he responded back and said, wow, I never knew. I said, what do you mean you never knew? I've told you this 100 times. I don't want to make a decision. Not because I can't. I just don't want to. That opens another tab, and it's another process. It's another thing. Okay. And I just really thought it was funny because, was it the other day? My oldest daughter had a soccer game. And so we were going to grab Chick-fil-A or Raising Cane's or something for dinner because we were going to eat at the soccer field before the 2 little ones had soccer practice. And I said, okay, what do you want to eat? Do you want me to grab you Chick-fil-A or Raising Cane's or what do you want? And he said, whatever is easiest for you. And I looked at him and I said, what's easiest for me is for you to tell me. And he said, okay, Raising Cane's. I said, see, how hard was that? Right? But they don't necessarily get it because their brains work very differently than ours as women. And it can be frustrating to feel like you have to repeat this again and again and again and again. And you're like, I just want you to figure it out on your own. Can you just do the thing? And what I realized when I was reflecting on this, because now my husband and I are celebrating 20 years this year in the fall, and he's now home a bit more than he ever was when he was in the military. And not only that, and I don't want this to come off as sounding wrong or bad or whatever, but he has matured. So he is not the 24-year-old that I married 20 years ago. And to be totally honest with you, he was a boy. He was a boy that had just come out of his mom's house, had lived on his own for a couple of years, and then we got married. And I took on the role of mothering him because that's really what had been modeled. And with military deployments, I just became head of the household and all the other things. And there was very little responsibility that he had. One, because he was gone so much that it was kind of easier for me to do it myself. But I noticed the other day when he started, and and he's been doing it for some time, but I sat and reflected on it. I really just kind of sat with it when I noticed that he didn't ask if I needed help with dinner. He just walked into the kitchen and started helping. And it was like the skies opened up and the angels were singing and they were like, hallelujah, we've done it, Steph, right? It's kind of what it felt like. And so it's just interesting that, yeah, there were times where I kind of had to drag him along and be like, hey, like, you see me doing something, you can help with it. And there are some instances still where I have to kind of take the lead and say, okay, hey, here's what needs to be done. But that's because I'm the visionary and I'm okay being the visionary, but I also want to share in that. And so it's inviting him in and having those conversations, right? And so we have some projects around the house that we're going to be working on this summer. And I sat with him the other day and I said, okay, what is the order of execution here? And he looked at me weird and he was like, order of what execution? And I said, well, we've got some projects to be done around the house still. The driveway, we've got to finish the deck. There's some outdoor projects that we'd like to get done. I said, what is our order of execution? Because I want to start setting aside the money now for these things. What do you think it's going to cost? What should we tackle first? Are we going to try to do some of the smaller projects first? Are we going to go, straight into the driveway? What does that look like? And it's not that he can't make decisions. It's that sometimes he jumps from one thing to another, kind of like those open tabs I had where it's like, okay, wait, we were talking about this. Now we're talking about that. Land the plane already. And so just kind of moving through those conversations has been actually quite fun. And you're getting just a full nutcase story today. Not a nutcase, but we're going to go down some rabbit trails, I think. So it was interesting to have these conversations because my consciousness is rising. It's increasing, and my days seem substantially longer and slower, and the productivity and presentness is just through the roof with these things. And so I forget who it was, but somebody had read, they did an astrology reading. That's what it was. I thought it was a palm reading for something, but I've never had my palm read. But they looked at my astrology, I think is what it was. I don't know. It was like a little free 20-minute call where somebody was like, hey, do you want me to give you? And I was like, okay, sure. Yeah. And during this call, she told me that I was actually going to have 3 marriages. And immediately I felt unsteady. I was like, no, I don't think that's going to be a thing. And so she started to say, in the first marriage, you'll feel like you're doing all the work. In the second marriage, will be more of a partnership. And in your third marriage, it's going to be a lot of travel. And so I just kind of sat with it. I don't remember what else she told me on this call, but because that thing was like a big thing. And I sat with it for a minute and I journaled about it. And I thought, I don't feel like getting married 3 times. That feels exhausting to try to learn somebody and all the things over and over again. And I thought, what if my husband and I just renew our vows and redefine our marriage 2 more times? Because now that he's out of the military and we're running a couple businesses together, it feels like we're shifting into the second marriage where it's a partnership. The first marriage where I was doing it all, exhausted, done, really don't want to go back there, right? But our marriage has morphed more into a partnership where we're doing a lot more things together. We're having conversations about our businesses and where we're going and our visions and our dreams. And it's not so much survival mode and me just floundering along, right? And I love it because you don't have to redo it. You can just refine it. And this was a conversation I had a couple weeks ago on the podcast, and actually something that's been coming through a lot lately is this refining. You don't have to throw away the thing that's not working and start over completely. You have some sort of a foundation already. Now, if your foundation is shot, yeah, we want to work on the foundation first, right? If you're, building a house, the foundation is the very first thing that you work on. You don't start with the roof, right? I know we've looked at a lot of houses lately. And so you don't start with the roof, you start with the foundation. What are the core tenets of who you are, your core beliefs, your priorities? What are the things that matter most in your life, and then build on those? But so often we look at the exterior, right? We want the house to look pretty from the outside, and we want it to look pretty from the outside quickly. And there's a saying for it. I don't know if it's international or nationally, but it's putting lipstick on a pig, right? Like, you can put lipstick on a pig, but it's still going to be a pig. And so you can fix up the exterior of a house, but if that foundation sucks, the exterior is going to also start to whittle away. And so starting with that foundation and saying, okay, here are the things that are most important to me. Maybe 3 to 5 things. And this is work that I do with my clients where we we start to shift so that your priorities are actually the most important things in your life, because oftentimes we say it's a priority, but all these other things are taking precedent. And so when you know what the priority is and you anchor in that priority, you build it as a foundation, the rest of it starts to just fit into place better. So what does your foundation look like? Interesting. Okay. I wasn't sure where this episode was going to go, but that's apparently where it went. And so I really want to encourage you to look at the foundation of things. Where are you at? What are the things that are most important to you? And are those the things that you're actually working on? Or are you hoping that those will be the things that just kind of come to fruition? Because if you're not actively working on it, it's not going to happen by chance. It just won't. So I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day. I hope that you enjoyed this conversation. And as always, be you, because the world needs more of you. Bye, love.